introduce the future governor del estado de Texas, mi amiguito, mi amigote. Y'all give it up for Beto O'Rourke.
For the people who are watching live stream that keep messaging me about what do we need, bring some more water. We ran out. Beto.
I want to begin by remembering those in Uvalde, that community, those families who have lost their children, who have lost their parents, who have lost those teachers, who have always been the strength of Uvalde. The most beautiful community, the most wonderful, gracious, kind, generous people that I have ever met. Being welcomed into the home of Ryan and Jess, who lost their daughter on Tuesday. Her daughter's name is Alithia. I had never heard that name before. I will never forget it for as long as I live. Walking into their kitchen, Alithia's balloons from her 10th birthday were still clinging to the ceiling, still helium in them. Her bed, as she left it that morning, still unmade. Her little sister, Akila, her little brother Jonah, running around the house, not understanding yet what had happened to their sister. And their mother, Jess, asked two things of me, of all of us. She said, I don't want anyone to ever forget that my little girl lived. I want them to know that she was the most beautiful child, so happy and so talented and gifted. There were her paintings and drawings all over the house, in the living room, in the kitchen, on every surface that you could find. And she was right. She was extraordinarily gifted and talented. I want you to remember Alithia. I want Jess and Ryan and that family to know that their child will always live with us for as long as we live. We will pass her story and her name down to the generations that follow us. We will never forget them. We will never forget Uvalde. We will always remember. The second thing she asked is that we do everything that we can with what we have, where we are, so that no mother ever feels as she does right now, ever has to experience the grief and the loss that they are feeling right now at this moment. And I say that because there are some, including those who've lost those who are most dear to them, who will say it is too soon for us to talk about what we are going to do to prevent this from ever happening again. But I hope that you agree with me that the time for us to have stopped Uvalde was right after Sandy Hook. The time for us to have stopped Uvalde was right after Parkland. The time for us to have stopped Uvalde was right after Santa Fe High School. The time for us to stop the next mass shooting in this country is right now, right here, today, with every single one of us. So, to the people of Uvalde, and to those everywhere, in El Paso, in Sutherland Springs, in Midland, Odessa, in Houston, Texas, to those who've lost somebody, but because it happens so much in this country, it has numbed us, and their names never made the newspaper. They may never be remembered. To those who still live with their wounds from gun violence, disabled today not able to live as they did the day before, I want you to know that not only are we with you right now, we are taking action at this very moment. That is all of us to do. To those who are attending the NRA convention across the street, you are not our enemies. We are not yours. We extend our hand open and unarmed in a gesture of peace and fellowship to welcome you to join us to make sure that this no longer happens in this country. But the time for you to respond and to join us is now. We cannot wait any longer for you. Those who will be the victims of the next mass shooting, unless we act, are counting on us at this moment. So please join us now or be left behind. To the leadership of the NRA and to those politicians that you have purchased, to those men and women in positions of power who care more about your power than using that power to save the lives of those that you are supposed to serve. If you have done anything good, it is the fact that you have brought us here together and that we are committing ourselves to act. We will defeat you and we will overcome you and we will leave you behind. And finally, to those who are here and to those who are watching from home right now, we are counting on each other. Our kids are counting on us. Our descendants are looking back on this moment from the future to see if we are going to stand and fight for them or leave them to be slaughtered. We cannot be found wanting. There are rituals on the other side of this, press conferences where they blame everyone and everything but those who are responsible for the carnage that we see in our communities, offering thoughts and prayers, but never a word of action. But let us acknowledge that we have our own rituals right here among us. Too many have chosen comfort over confrontation. Too many are satisfied with themselves and those who think like them instead of engaging with those they've never met before who may come to a different conclusion on this issue. It is time for us to break these rituals and to decide what we are going to do different, because if we continue to do the same thing in the same way and expect a different result, that is the very definition of insanity. So I ask you, for those in power and who hold office right now and who are in the way and refuse to act, please promise me you will get in their faces before another child is shot in their face. Join me in getting after it and going out there and meeting the voters who will decide the outcome of this election in the most suppressed and voter-intimidated state in the Union, where so many people have been drawn out of our democracy. We've got to be on their doors and invite them into this next election, because the lives of our kids are literally on the ballot. Let us commit ourselves right now to doing the hardest things that we can think of, because nothing about this will be easy. And we want to make sure that no parent goes through the hardest thing that any of us could possibly experience, what those parents are going through in Uvalde right now. But also know this: action is the antidote to despair. It is the key to victory, and it is necessary if we are ever to overcome this. Are you willing to act? Keep the faith, keep up the fight, and let us always do this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Beto. Make way, make way, make way. There are too many people on the stage.
unarmed on our streets. And so one could be forgiven for saying, well, what about this moment, or my willingness to step forward and take action is going to make this any better? You just don't know, right? But what's the alternative? It's to sit back and hope that it's something that matters. It's to sit back and just hope that your kid is not going to be the one who is shot in the face and killed in her classroom. That teacher who's given the best years of her life to those kids doesn't end up also giving her life. I can't be part of that. I don't think you can either. Certainly no one who is here. But to John's question, we got to engage the people who are not here. And that's why I go to every part of Texas. That's why our volunteers are knocking on every door in this state. And yes, we're knocking on the doors of Democrats, but we're also knocking on the doors of Republicans and independents, and importantly, people who have never voted before. Tell me an effort that goes out and talks to people who are non-voters to bring them in. But we're doing that because their kids' lives are on the ballot this November. And I want to make sure they have a chance to do something before it's too late.
And on that point of reaching out to everyone, what specific areas of compromise could you have with the NRA?
I don't know that there is compromise with the leadership of the NRA. They have shown a complete disregard for the lives of the people of this country and of the state of Texas. They prioritize power and profits over lives. And I don't know that you're ever going to find common ground with someone who operates like that. But the membership of the NRA, now that's a completely different deal. You know, they are parents, just like I'm a dad. They care about their kids and grandkids just as much as I care about my children. They know that we cannot continue in the same way and expect a different result. And what I hear from them, those members, is, yeah, a universal background check, that makes sense. That's not too much to ask. If we'd had one, you might not have lost 8 lives in Midland, Odessa in 2019 because the guy who went into the licensed firearms dealer wasn't able to purchase a gun because he couldn't pass the background check. So we went to a private seller, not covered in the state because we don't have universal background checks, and bought that AR-15 and killed the people of that community. An extreme risk protection order, or a red flag law as it's called, that might have stopped the shooting in Santa Fe High School. Safe storage laws might have done the same. There are gun owners, non-gun owners, Republicans, Democrats, who can find common ground on this. The only ones standing in the way are the ones in power, because they prioritize their power more than they do those families who need them to do something with that power to save their lives. We've got to change them.
Law enforcement officers this morning, they had erred in waiting outside the door, the locked door, for people to down. I wonder if you think that policy implications to the scenario that played out there, if you have a response to that admission from law enforcement officers this morning.
You know, some will argue that, in fact, the NRA has said explicitly that more guns are the solution. And the only way to stop these acts of terror and horror are to have more people with more guns. Well, there were people with guns on the scene of that slaughter, and it did not prevent it. What we could do, if we chose to, is stop selling weapons that were designed for use in war, because those high-impact, high-velocity rounds are designed to tear everything inside of you apart. It's intended to put that enemy soldier down, and he's supposed to bleed out before anyone can get to him, revive him, and put him back in the action. That weapon and those rounds were used against 9 and 10 and 11-year-old kids. So I don't know that this is a law enforcement issue. I don't know that this is a locked door issue. I know that this is a gun issue. And I know that we as Texans can defend the Second Amendment and do a far better job of protecting the lives of our children and the people in our families and in our communities. We just have to choose to do it.
It's time for one more.
Yeah, do you think that people now will change their minds after what they have seen and heard what happened in Yucatan?
The honest answer is I don't know, and that's tough for politicians to say. We like to speak in certainty. This is going to happen if we do the following things. People want that confidence, that believing that their actions will make a difference, will actually produce the outcome that we're all looking for. But if we're going to be honest with each other, we don't know. But the alternative is to sit back and to watch this carnage continue to happen in our communities, and to hope and pray that it's not my kid or your kid who's shot in the face next time. To hope and pray that somehow this problem will just solve itself. It won't. We know that. We're smart enough to understand that. So the only choice before us is to act. And it just so happens that action is the antidote to despair. When we are in motion, when we're talking to people, when we're doing everything we can with what we have, where we are, we know that we're at least contributing to the possibility that we'll get to that solution, that we'll stop this carnage and bloodshed and violence and death and suffering. That's what all those who are here today in Houston are about. That's what I'm about, and that's what I think millions, the majority of our fellow Texans are about, including many of those members of the NRA. Do not give up on them. Do not assume anything about them. Reach out to them, talk to them, listen to them, bring them in. It's going to take all of us if we're going to overcome it. Yes, we will ultimately. When that happens, I don't know. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me.
Hold on real quick.
It is an honor to meet you, and I just want to thank you for being here. I can't imagine the courage that you have to summon to do this, but I just want you to know that I'm grateful, that I love you, and I'm going to do everything I can to follow your lead and to make sure that this does not continue to happen. I want to know from you what you want me to do, and what your expectations are of me, and how I can help you and others who've been through this, and to stop it from happening to others who haven't.
Yeah, so on the prevention side, pretty simple. We need a governor like you who can stand up and say these laws need to change. We need, at a minimum, red flag laws. We need to go back kind of where we were before the extremists push us to the point where it seems like everyone can carry a gun anywhere. That needs to stop. Access to guns and the way that dangerous people can get their hands on a gun simply needs to stop. On the other side, this is where I'm working together with some of the local representatives like Representative Van Johnson. The backlog right now in Harris County is unacceptable. It's possible that our son's case will be heard for another 3 years. Other people having their justice delayed over and over. There are people like Ann Johnson and others with her. The Harris County Commissioners voted unanimously. Expand the number of courts. We've had one court added since 1984. We've doubled from 2.2 million to 4.2 million in that time. We need more courts, we need more judges, and we need to get through the backlog that happened. And with your leadership, instead of using the backlog as a cudgel to beat up local, Democrats and local representatives, we need to find solutions so that, we need, my son needs justice. All the other murder victims who are out here expect justice. And justice delayed doesn't work for the accused either. So if you're innocent, you want to get through the process faster. But if you're a victim, right now nobody really gives a rat's ass about victims. We just suffer in silence, and I'm tired of being silent. That's why I'm here. My son's behind me.
I'm so glad that you are here, and I'm glad to be with you. And I want to do this. I'm going to drop my. Oh, okay. Let me do
This is his daughter.
She's the cooler person in the bunch, but she just cusses a lot, so we'll try that.
I used to have that problem as well.
Yeah.
It can be cured of it ultimately.
On a lighter note, I attended Mesita Elementary School.
You attended Mesita?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
3 years before you.
That's my alma mater, and oh my